This conference will now be recorded.
How's everyone doing this morning?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks. All right. Is everybody here that needs to be here?
Do you want to? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. All right. So we want to pick up where we left off on Friday. We had just come through the inventory module. Any questions on the purchasing and receiving before we move forward here?
I think there's a lot of questions, but we want to review the last session video.
Okay.
Before we dive into that.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into your practice database. All right. Can you log in there? Try that again.
Bruce, if you want to try a password, that should get you in.
Okay.
Yeah, all lowercase.
There we go. All right, thanks. Sometimes on these new systems, it's actually something different, and so I thought it would be the new one, so that's okay. All right, so I'm going to go back in inventory here and just finish up a couple of things that we didn't get to on Friday, and then we're going to get on into Schedule Pro. So I'm going to go to item inventory first here, and I'm just going to bring up some of that stuff that we have put in the system as far as purchasing and receiving. And I know we put some stuff in there.
Bruce, I did run a copy from the live RFMS database, so whenever that copied over, we may have to.
Oh, yeah. Yep, it wiped all our practice stuff out. Okay, that's fine. I'll just add a couple things in the inventory here. Let's just make sure. I think, yeah. Okay. So we'll just drop a couple things in here and talk about the inventory adjustments and inventory consolidation. I briefly mentioned that consolidation on Friday, so I'm going to show you how that works. All right, so I'm going to put some more carpet pad in here. All right, we'll use some of this black diamond again, black diamond 3/8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of lines of this pad in here to show how that consolidation works. and then also how the inventory adjustments work. All right, so I'll put 90 rolls of pad in there. Okay, so inventory adjustments, let's say that you do a cycle count, or you do an inventory count, or you have some damage or something like that, and you need to make an adjustment to the quantity in your inventory. And so inventory adjustments can be done here. They can only be done on costed inventory, which means it's inventory that has a supplier invoice tied to it. And so these, I put these in using the return found utility, and so therefore they get an invoice by the system doing it that way. As you purchase and receive materials, you'll get the invoices in, you'll do the costing, and then that will apply the invoice information to the inventory line. And then once that happens, you can make the adjustments. And so let's say on this 30, we go out and we do a count, and there's only 28 rolls there instead of 30. So we need to update the inventory to match that. So this little icon at the top of the screen looks like a little hammer and a screwdriver. This is the adjustment tool. That will make an adjustment on the highlighted line. So it's on this line for the 30. The adjustment date, of course, is self-explanatory. Customer invoice number is an optional field. You don't have to have something there. But here on the quantity fields is where we do the adjustment. Every time you bring this up, it automatically puts in the available quantity into that first field. And so you generally are going to change this to the amount you're going to adjust. And what it will do, it will just do some subtraction here. So 30 minus 2 is going to give us a new amount of 28. And then we're going to pick the adjustment type. And we have a predefined list of types here, but you can also add your own adjustment types. Here under the File menu, you can go to Adjustment Types, and this gives you that list that's in the drop-down, but you can add your own here as well. So like if you wanted to add an adjustment type for the physical inventory, you just simply add that, and then that will show up in your drop-down list.
So it's showing what's available, but your physical inventory is not going to be what's available, right? It's going to be what's on hand.
Well, the physical inventory consists of what is reserved and available.
Right.
So that actually makes up the on-hand quantity. The inventory adjustments can only be done on what is in the available column. Right, that's the only column that's going to adjust. This tool will not adjust the reserved column or the used or the received. It will only adjust the available.
How do you figure that when you're taking physical inventory of what's reserved? So you're just going to be able to count what's physically back there on hand.
So part of physical inventory, we'll go through that. There's a preparatory process. You have to run some reports. One of the reports you have to run is reserved materials. You have to run a report on cut and delivered materials, and you have to make sure that the cut and delivereds are pulled out or quarantined away from the count area so that they're not inadvertently counted and added back when they shouldn't be. You have to account for the reserves and make sure they're either properly labeled or put them back in available to do the count. Because if you don't get all that preparation done, then your count is going to be a little more difficult. And so when you go to actually do a count, you have to take all those things in consideration. All right, so let's adjust 2 here. We'll mark this up as a physical count. And then that is going to change your available quantity. It's going to put those 2 over in the used as if they had shipped, basically. And then in the history on the inventory record, that's that little H button, you'll be able to see here the adjustment for the 2 as a result of a physical count, leaving your new amount available. And the adjustments in the roll inventory work exactly the same way. You can also do negative adjustments. Let's say you go out and you do the count and there are 30 and not 28 there. And so you can actually add material back. That's done with a negative number. And then that will post the new amount available as 30. Once again, you'd flag it as the type. And that will make the go up. So you can do positives and negatives on the adjustments. You can also do transfers or splits. So let's say we want to move 10 of these to maybe another location or something like that. And so we can put the 10 here. We can change the adjustment type to a transfer. And that opens up additional area here. And so we can transfer it to another item record. The transfer can actually be removing it from inventory, which is the same as scrapping it out, or moving it to another store code. And that gives us the option to put the new store code in there. So either of those 3 things can be done here. This one here, we'll just transfer it to another line. And so we're going to leave the product code and the item number the same. And that's going to confirm the transfer. And then you'll see that, okay, we've taken 10 out. So the new available quantity is 20. And let's do another search here. And then you'll see that 10. So we've taken that line and we split it into 2 lines, basically. And the transfer in the roll screen works exactly the same way. That comes in handy, like if you're cutting rolls and you're splitting them up and you need to identify those individually in the system. This is how you would do that. You can also do consolidation here in the item screen. Let's say, because here's what happens is that every time you issue a PO, for material, it creates a new line in your inventory module. And as you complete them, of course, they'll go to 0 and they'll zero out. They'll always be there, but they'll still zero out. But let's say you want to consolidate some of these to be a single line instead of multiple lines like we have here. And so we do have the inventory consolidation tool. That's here under the utilities menu. Now this only works in the item inventory screen. You cannot consolidate roles. You can't put 2 roles back together into 1 roll. All right, so let's do the items here. The first thing you do is use your binoculars to locate what you're looking for. And so these are in store 1, product code 3, and the item number here is going to be the black diamond. And so we're going to F8 to go find that. And so here is our 4 lines. We can pick any of them with the hand there. When we click OK, that's going to bring all 4 of those lines into our consolidation window. Once we have them here, we have to decide which one is going to be the destination record or the recipient record of all the other quantities. When I'm doing this, I'm usually looking at the dates. Usually I'm consolidating to the most recent date. And I'm also looking at the cost to make sure that they're all either the same cost or very close in cost. And because what this does in the background is it makes inventory adjustments downward to zero out the lines that we're consolidating from. and then it makes an inventory adjustment upward on the line we're consolidating to. Okay, so let's select this last line here as our destination record. Once we decide on the destination, we click this button at the bottom that says Set Destination. And that takes that line and moves it now to the bottom of the screen. So you can see here, this is our line for 10. It's no longer at the top. And then we're going to tag other lines that are going to be merged, basically, into that destination line. And you'll notice down here at the bottom, I've tagged those other lines, and so the new quantity on the destination line will be 90 once I complete the process. Because it's just taking the 30, 40, and 20, adding it to the 10. All right, once I get that all decided, I'm going to hit the gears, and that will consolidate those records. And I go back here and do a new search on that item. Then I'm going to see the one line with the 90 now. The rest of the lines are zeroed out. And then here the history is going to show me that here's where that 90 came from. It came from consolidation of the 20, 20, and 40 into the 10. Is there any questions on that process?
I think we're good.
Okay, good. There are also several reports here under the inventory module, and you'll use a combination of these, throughout your use of RFMS, depending on the need. But there are several reports. The range reports, those are, they pull basic data on the inventory. You can run a report on the inventory adjustments. You can set up reorder levels on your inventory products and run these needed inventory reports to compare your on-hand versus your reorder needs. There's the reserve report. There are several purchase order reports, pricing reports, history reports. The inventory balance report will show you the dollar value of inventory at any given time. And then for physical inventory, the physical reports are going to print out basically a count sheet for you. And you can sort that a couple of different ways. And then the stock status report will, if you want to set reorder levels, once again, it will show you your stock position. It'll compare your on hand and your on order and your sold. And it will show you what your stock position is. And then the stock replenishment report will show you how long it would take to turn current inventory based on sales over a time period that you plug into the filter.
So it's a kind of a projection.
It is, yeah. It'll show you like on this pad. Okay, we have 90 available. If we had plugged in a date range and of the last quarter, then it would look at our sales in that last quarter, and it would look at that 90, and it would tell you how many weeks, based on those previous sales, how many weeks it's going to take to sell that 90. All right. So any questions on inventory before we move forward here?
Hey, Bruce, I have one question. I don't know if it's really inventory related. It's probably product file related.
Okay, sure.
But after our training last week, we were trying to build some things. And I noticed, like, for instance, on products from Ohio Valley Flooring, if we were to pull up a hardwood and we find it and we bring that in to a line, it asks us if we would like to see related items.
The associated bundle items, yes.
Yes. So is that a function of the product catalog we downloaded or received from the vendor? Because,
Yeah,
like, for instance, go to Louisville Tile, theirs doesn't bring up related items.
Yeah, it depends on the vendor. And there's a system option. Most of the time we have that on. because it's a helpful thing. But you can see where those are here in the product module under utilities. You'll go to the associated product bundles here. And this will allow you to see what you have bundles on. So for example, like we wanted to see the ones for, Ohio Valley. Let's search for that here. Okay, and so these are bundles of products coming in from Ohio Valley. And the bundles are generally color coordinated matching pieces or trim that go along with the main product.
Well, what was confusing a little bit, so if you go on to Ohio Valley's website, they do have that function on their website to see related items once you select a product. And but when you go to Louisville Tile's website, it's very similar. It's Danzig software. They also have the related items, but they were not coming through to RFMS.
Yeah, and it depends on the vendor as far as which ones come to RFMS. Yeah, they didn't download any, right? Ohio Valley did, Louisville Tile did, Shaw probably did. It really just depends on the vendor.
So how can I explain that intelligently to Louisville Tile?
You can, ask your rep about it. If they don't know what that means, you could show them. You could say, "Hey, look, Ohio Valley sends me this, and I get the matching trim to go along with it in my e-commerce product catalog." Do you have that ability to do that? Now, I don't know if Louisville Tile has that ability or not.
We need to speak to Nick McLaughlin about that.
Okay. Nick. Okay, thank you.
You bet. If they can get them for you, that's awesome, because it's a great thing.
Well, you think they should, because it's on their website that way. It's already set up.
You would think, right? I agree with you. But like I say, you'll just have to ask them.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good. All right. Well, let's go into Schedule Pro. I'm actually going to go into your live database here for Schedule Pro. Now, there's a tool here that I want to make you aware of. Whenever you're ready to exit RFMS, you can go to the Navigator menu here and go to Log Out, and that will close all of your open RFMS windows. If you had inventory and order entry and products in accounting, you had those all open, you can just log out, and that will close them all for you, rather than having to close out each one. All right, so Schedule Pro.
Hey Bruce, the live database does have a different password.
Okay.
It's password 58412.
That's the one I was trying to use on practice. It should be password 58142. 58142. But that is not working. Okay.
You changed it to that. Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce. Do floor 10500.
Floor 10500.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. All right. So let's go talk about Schedule Pro. Now, Schedule Pro has a little bit of setup that we have to do in order for it to work. And so, since you've done a copy to practice, recently, what I'm going to ask you to do is, after we get some setup done here today in Schedule Pro, go ahead and do another copy to practice, so that we don't have to duplicate what we've done here over in practice to do our training. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So. First thing we have to do is visit the utilities menu here. There's several things we're going to visit here on the utilities. And all of these things that we're doing, they can be and probably will be, changed again as time goes forward. Like if you add a crew, you're going to come back here. If you decide to add a job type or a skill level or a status, you're going to come back here. So these are These are initial setup, but they're also used as time goes by. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is set up our installation depot. Now the depot is I call it the box that all of our crews and all of our work operates out of. So we put the store information in the box, we put the crew information in the box, we put the job type information in the box, and that's the container that everything flows out of as we do our scheduling. All right, does that make sense? Okay, so we're going to add a depot. Without a depot, we can't do anything, right? So first question is, how many places or how many hubs do our installers work out of? Does everybody come to one location and get their work, or do they go to 2 different locations and get their work? How does that set up?
So all tile goes to location 3.
Okay.
All tile, and then carpet, hardwood, and LVT goes to store location. Is that 2? I think it's 2.
Okay. All right. So we have, and those 2 schedules, do those schedules run completely separate of each other?
No, we're going to do centralized scheduling.
Okay. So you want to see all of that on the same schedule, basically, then, right?
Yes, and that's done out of store 3.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to start. I'm just going to call this Premier installation to begin with. Okay. And say it's mainly store 3. Is that what you said?
All the scheduling is done out of store 3. Yes.
Okay. So we'll start with that. This can be changed. If you start working with this, we need to call this something different, you can go back and change it. All right. And then we're going to associate the stores with the depot. Okay. So each store can have a primary and a secondary depot. And whenever we get into the scheduling screens, this will make a little more sense because the grid that you see on the screen is relative to the depot you have selected, and you can see one depot schedule at a time. But the primary and secondary gives you the option to toggle back and forth between 2 depots, depending on what store you're in. Okay. So at the beginning here, we're going to tie all 3 of these stores to our depot of Premier Installation. Sometimes what folks will do is they'll set up like a secondary depot for their delivery or for their measures, and then that way they can schedule those things independently of the installation schedule. So just keep that in mind. And as you need to make any changes, you can always come back here and update these things. We'll start with this.
Can we go back?
Yeah.
So I have a question about that secondary. You said you can you set that up for like warranty work or deliveries? You said?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I think, yeah, I'd like to explore that more later on if that's okay.
Absolutely, yeah. And once we get into the screen, you'll kind of see, and then you'll decide, and it'll usually becomes really clear. It's like, okay, I can see my main installation schedule if I click here, but if I click this secondary depot, then I can see my delivery schedule, or then I can see my warranty schedule. And it usually works that way. Then we're going to go in here and we're going to set up, and we're going to start talking about job types. So the job types are the main categories that you run your installation jobs under. So the majority of the time, this list looks something like carpet, sheet vinyl, tile, hardwood, LVP, LVT, cabinetry, window treatments. It's kind of broad categories based on your product mix and the types of installation work that you do. Okay. So we're going to start a couple of things here. Let's do carpet. Now on these, in order for Schedule Pro to put 2 and 2 together, we have to make the job type unit of measure match the unit of measure that we're going to use for scheduling. And we can use either material for scheduling or labor for scheduling. Either way is fine. We just have to make the unit of measure match in order for Schedule Pro to be able to put it all together. Okay, so what's
let me ask you a question about that. So, and earlier you said that the individual using it can either use square foot or yards.
Right. Schedule Pro is kind of takes the next step with that, and it's going to be one way or the other as far as the scheduling goes.
Well, would you be more comfortable with square foot? So square foot.
Okay. And then we're going to associate a color to each one of these job types. The colors are going to show up on the grid as you do the scheduling, and it's just a visual thing for you, to, like, if you know that carpet is yellow, then it's easy for you to look at the grid and see carpet versus, hardwood might be brown or something.
What color? Yeah.
Do you guys, a lot of people have a color system already, and we can usually just copy that as we're doing this.
No, we don't.
Okay. All right, any preference?
Yellow.
Okay. And then on those colors, and if you want a different color yellow, maybe you want a darker yellow or whatever, that's totally fine. You can pick from the predefined grid, or you can go to this custom colors, and it's unlimited as to what you can pick for a color.
Yeah, we're just plain people, yellow.
All right, let's do vinyl. Square feet also, right?
Yes, sir.
Preference on color?
Can you make that sheet vinyl instead of just vinyl?
Sure.
Just pick a color, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Generally, I'm real basic. I go right across the grid. All right, and hardwood, you want to say hardwood or wood?
Hardwood.
And then you can go and add to this list anytime you want. We'll do one more here, and then some of your homework will be to go in and actually finish setting up this list. Tile, do you want that to say tile or ceramic?
Tile. Well, that and windows framing.
Okay.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So, so should backsplash be separate than tile?
Probably not.
Well, how about if you have high-end custom jobs and you wanted to separate your labor to the ones that just do the high-end custom jobs? Is it noteworthy to have a line that says custom tile?
You can. So the way Schedule Pro works is the next screen we're going to go into is kind of the next piece of this setup. What we do is we take your RFMS product codes and we link them to these job types that we're setting up, and you can only link one job type per product code. So you have to look at the way your materials are set up. So like product code 5 is tile, you're going to have floor tile and backsplash tile, all in that same category of product code 5. And you can only link it to one job type. So it's not like you could link part of 5 to tile and part of 5 to backsplash. Now you could do backsplash labor that is, in your labor codes, and then have it separated that way, and then have a job type for it. But you would need to set up a labor code for specifically backsplash labor.
I get it.
Okay. And again, these, as we kind of start you with the basics, so you can get the mechanics of how it works and understand how the things are linked together. And then as you start to use it, you'll decide, oh man, we need to create this, or we need to add that, right? And you'll kind of grow with it, and you will customize it as you grow with it.
Okay.
So this is going to be carpet. This is going to be sheet vinyl. Pad. Now your pad cushion product code, does that contain only carpet cushion?
I would think so. I don't know.
Well, I wouldn't.
I guess LVB, laminate pad or something like that could be one thing to.
Reason I ask is, that depends if we're going to associate it with carpet or not specifically with carpet.
I'd say just keep it with carpet.
Whatever they're doing with B2B, because those product codes come out.
And then as you go through this list, there are things like sundries and adhesives. Those could be used for a variety of job types. And so what will happen here, Schedule Pro will only allow you to schedule lines from your customer orders that have a product code that is linked to a job type. Okay, so at this moment, for example, since we haven't set up a laminate job type yet, and we don't have laminate's product code linked to a job type, we actually can't schedule a product code 6 line at this time because we don't have that link set up. All right.
So let me ask you a question then. Sundries could be hardwood glue.
Yeah. So let me finish my thought here. So in the job type list, we have one called miscellaneous, right? This is for all those things that we would want to see on the schedule, but are not specific to a major job type. So we put those in miscellaneous. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you're going to come down and you're going to also do the same thing with the labor codes. You're going to link those to job type. So carpet, vinyl, tile, hardwood, and I'm just double clicking in this field to get that drop down to pop up. Okay. Miscellaneous. All right. So part of your homework this week is going to be to finish this job type list and finish linking these up to the product codes. Once we get that list in there, then we're going to decide how we're going to tell Schedule Pro to calculate our scheduling capacity against actual jobs scheduled. That can be done based on the quantity on the material lines or the quantity on the labor lines. Okay. So for example, we're going to set up some crews and we're going to say the crew can do, maybe the crew can do 1,800 square feet a day of carpet. Well, do we want to base that on material quantity or on labor quantity? Thoughts?
I'd say
When you
labor.
when you build a job, most people, when they build a job, they'll send out a larger quantity of material than they do labor because we have waste included in the material, but we pay labor on the net quantity. Some people do the same quantity on both. How do you guys do that?
Let's do labor.
Okay. So, the next part of this piece of the setup is we go to those labor codes and we tell the system just what you just told me, use the labor, right? So we do that by putting a green check mark on the labor code. And this is how Schedule Pro knows how to calculate your scheduling quantities. It's going to look at the quantities on those product code lines, and it's going to use those to determine quantity and capacity. Okay. So the next part of the setup is to take that information that we just did and apply it to our depot. But to do that, we have to set up crews because we have to put in crew names and tell the computer, okay, this crew can do this type of job and this much in a given day. All those numbers then from the crews will feed back to the depot, our depot box, as I mentioned earlier, and that will give us the grand totals that we're capable of doing in our depot. All right. So let's set up some crews. So I'm in utilities and set up and crews at this point. So we're going to hit the green plus. Now, if your crews are already set up in human resources, that helps. And so the first thing we do is link them to the depot. And then we link them to those providers we have set up in human resources through the provider button here. All right, who would be a good one that maybe can do carpet or vinyl or wood?
The third one down.
Bartlett.
Yeah.
So we'll select him. That's going to fill in his name, address information. Here in the crew description, I usually like to put in here what type of work that they do. So what does Robert Bartlett do?
Carpet.
Carpet. Okay. And does he have a nickname? Do we call him Bobby? Anything like that?
Bob and Tom.
Bob and Tom. Old radio show host back from Indianapolis, Bob and Tom. All right. And then what days do those guys work?
Monday through Friday, maybe.
Yeah, we put Saturday, but
Okay.
no.
All right.
Okay, never mind.
Override if that's
No Saturday?
Yeah.
Okay. And then here it also gives you a place to add notes if you want to on the crew. So we're going to add that crew. Let's add another one here.
Do Casey. Yeah. Do Casey Waller.
Waller. Okay. So I'm going to search here for his name, Waller. There we go. All right. And what does Casey do?
Hardwood.
All right. And does he have a nickname?
No.
Okay. All right. And you can also notice that there are email fields that you can also use here. If you do an email address here, you'll have the ability to email their work orders to them straight out of Sched Pro.
Okay.
Get those set up.
Yeah.
All right. Now, so we've got a couple of crews. You'll notice down below the job types that we set up are listed here under each crew. So this is where we're going to tell the computer how much they can do on a daily basis. Right. So we said Casey is a hardwood guy. Ballpark it, what would be the maximum you could give him in any given day?
1,000 feet.
Okay. And how many jobs would you potentially give him in a given day?
1.
Okay. Does he do anything else that we've set up so far, or just hardwood?
No, sir. Just hardwood.
If he did, the reason I ask, if he did hardwood and carpet, for example, you'd go ahead and give him a quantity on both lines.
Okay.
Okay. And then this skill level thing is optional here. That's another thing under the setup menu. You go to setup and you go to skill levels. You basically can build your own list of skill levels. And when you do that, they're going to show up here in this drop-down list, and that you can flag those. And this is only information that stays inside Schedule Pro. It's just internal information here. All right, so Robert then does carpet. How much carpet could Robert do in a given day?
1,800.
And how many jobs?
1.
You don't think he doesn't do 18?
And he also does
Change that.
Let's change the quantity there.
Okay.
1,000. Let's do 1,000.
Okay.
He also does vinyl. Well, we don't have it. He does hardwood.
Okay, perfect. How much hardwood can he do?
400.
And one job?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is how you'll set up the crews. You'll go in each one, you'll add them, and you go in, you'll set up their job types.
So let me ask you a question.
Uh-huh.
On the skill level, let's say he's got a high skill level for carpet and a medium skill level for hardwood. Can you have two? So, okay.
Absolutely. So you, in your skill level list, you'll just you'll build those, And so you'll put one on carpet and you'll put one on hardwood.
Okay.
They are, the skill levels are independent per job type.
I have a quick question for you.
Okay, sure.
So we don't have LVP set up yet, but so a lot of our hardwood, pre-finished hardwood jobs, we're doing LVP at the same time.
Sure.
Would that be considered a second job or still just one job because it's maybe coming from the same ticket?
Yeah, it's going to be a separate job type because you have an LVP product code.
So if you have them set up for just one job,
It won't let you schedule.
does that mean it won't let you schedule him to do 2 jobs?
No, what it does is it looks at these thresholds. These are all thresholds that we've set here. Okay, so as you're scheduling, so let's say we schedule him for 800 square feet of carpet. So that is a percentage of his overall capacity. And so it won't really stop you until you reach one of the thresholds or you reach 100% of his capacity. Okay.
So it's about the
Then it'll start
capacity.
telling you.
Can it be overridden?
It can be, yeah. We're going to get into system options here in a bit. I'm going to ask you a ton of questions on how to set up the system options because it can be set up that some people can override it, some people can't. It can be set up to where some people see a pop-up warning, some people don't. All kinds of options on that.
Okie dokie.
All righty. I say there's a lot of setup to Sched Pro. All right. So, kind of we've got some things started here. So I want to show you how this starts to all work together. So I'm going to use the blue arrow here. And when I do that, it's going to update my capacities based on what I've put in so far. And it's going to eventually close. Now, if I go back to my depot screen, we're going to start to see all this starting to come together. So here's my depot. And so on my days of the week that I had checked for my crews, and based on the quantities I loaded in for my crews, it's starting to feed in these daily capacities for each job type for my depot, right? And so as I schedule, then it looks at those product code lines that we put the green check marks on. It uses the quantities that are on those lines to then subtract from what you see here to kind of monitor and guide you on how much you're scheduling each day.
Okay.
You want to make sure when you set your crews up that you've got good, accurate ballpark information in there so that whenever you start scheduling, it's going to be realistic. There's another option we'll talk about here in a moment. In that right now it's showing quantity. It's showing that it's based on crew capacity quantity. You can change this to be number of crews versus quantity. So if we did that, then carpet would say 1 and hardwood would say 2, right? Because we set up 2 guys with a hardwood capacity. And then it will subtract based on like if you assign 1 guy to hardwood, then that's going to change your available capacity for that day to 1 because you've got 1 assigned already. All right. Let's go back to the setup. You can also schedule crew time off here. When we get a little further into it, you're going to see that the crews have colored dots by their names that indicate their availability. And so if you have a crew that's off, you want to schedule them off in the system here so that their dot will show that they're off and so that it will decrease your capacity in a given day by their quantity, because you don't want to, if you got 5 guys and 1 guy's off, then you really only have 4. So you don't want to schedule 5 guys on a day that you only have 4, right? So you use the time off to help manage that. All right, then we have the job statuses. Now we start you out with 2 by default. I always like to have at least 2 more in here. I like to have one that says scheduled, and I like to have one that says confirmed. And with these, we can also put them in chronological order so that it kind of makes sense as to the progression here. And then you can add to this list as much as you want. based on the different types of flags you want to place on the jobs as they progress. What this is a description that rides on the scheduled job, and it also feeds back to the order entry screen so that when I go look at my customer order, I can see this field and it tells me where it's at in the installation process. Okay, we also have an optional thing here for time slots. You know, if you do scheduling to where you're scheduling for, 2-hour slots or 4-hour slots, then you can go set up those slots in this time slot list. And as you schedule, then you can use those. Right, and then we'll talk about the tracking tables a little bit later on. Let's go now and look at the system options for Schedule Pro, because this is where I'm going to ask a lot of questions. Okay, and then there's a couple of order entry ones also. Now, when the system out of the box has all the stuff for Schedule Pro turned off, so as we go, we're going to be turning a bunch of stuff on for Schedule Pro. And let's actually start with the order entry ones. And I'm going to look at the estimated delivery date in the order header. So right now, order entry has the upper hand in the date. We're going to turn that off because we're going to give that to Schedule Pro. There's also a button in order entry. It's called the Schedule Pro button. And let me show you that button. So when you're in your custom order screen, it's the Schedule Pro button right here at the top of the screen. And if you're going to do centralized scheduling, two options for this button. So one option is if I'm in the order entry screen and I click that button, it can actually open the Schedule Pro screen so that I can go schedule. The other option for that button is if I'm in the order screen and I click it, it sends an alert to my scheduler to let my scheduler know this job needs to be scheduled. So we have to decide on the behavior of that button. Now, a lot of times we'll set up our schedulers to open Schedule Pro, but our sales team to create the alert.
Because our sales team, as of right now, is just close. So maybe they could turn it to an order. Yeah. So soon we got to make sure that the inventory.
Well, if we do it to where they can send the alert, then she could prioritize things. Definitely don't want them scheduled.
Well, definitely not physically scheduled. They have a recommended installer.
Can they? Go ahead.
So if we set that up to send the scheduler a a notification, is there a place to put any notes in that notification?
Yes, absolutely. What you'll want to do is use the order internal notes, and this way, when the scheduler sees the alert on his screen, he gets to be trained to always read those internal notes, and that way that information can pass through.
So that would be order notes or line notes?
Order internal notes.
Order internal notes. Okay. I think on the short term, long term, short term, I think our builders still to be trying to schedule this with their sales people until we train them not to. But it'll take a year. But still, I think the sales people know what installer this builder just loves that installer. Because I had one of the artists where it's running, that lot. You can do something. All right, I think we definitely want that to give the scheduler an alert.
Okay. And so who of your users, who needs to be sending the alerts?
So Jeremy, Keith, is Kelly the salesperson? Kelly, Letitia, Paula, Richie, Shannon. Is that Shannon the dude?
Is that Shannon?
I don't see another Shannon.
I didn't hear you say Joseph. Everybody's name might not be on that list because they only populate whenever we log in, and that's our live database. Not everybody's marked.
Okay, so we'll need to add more.
By you, Greg. I'll do it by email if I have to do it.
Tell me better than that on there.
So then our other users, we just want it to open up for them to schedule.
Sherry,
Okay, she may not be logged in yet.
no, and Amber, neither one of them is logged in.
Okay.
Just do it and log it back out.
Okay, what about
And Dawn,
Anthony?
he's not- Anthony will not schedule.
Okay,
Frank will,
all right.
deliveries and stuff.
And for our training, I'm going to set Greg to open. What about Dean?
Sure.
Okay. And I think the only one we didn't have tagged earlier then was Laura.
Yeah, she's a designer. I don't think she'll need to schedule anything.
Okay. So what we'll do then, we'll set Laura to create alert. Basically, you want this to just be able to open for the people who actually need to open it. Dean, Frank, and Greg. We'll set them to open. This can always be changed if you decide to change it later. All right. We've got Dean, Frank, and Greg are going to open. Everybody else is going to create alerts. And these folks are RFMS people, so it really doesn't matter on those. Okay. All right. Okay, and then here, this one here actually puts icons on your order entry screen for Schedule Pro related actions. Okay, so it allows you to see from the order screen if the job is scheduled or if something has changed. And so we're going to turn that on for everybody. And we're going to display alert. There you go. We're going to turn that on for everybody. All right, so we're going to look at the Schedule Pro system options. All right, on our capacities that we've been setting up for our crews, for now we're going to leave that on automatic based on crew capacities. This one here, we had set on those first two crews that they could do, one job per day. This is a system-wide setting that controls how many jobs per day a crew can be scheduled. So this would need to be the maximum number that any crew could be scheduled in a day, maximum number of jobs.
Yeah, how many capacitor crews? So let's make that 10.
Okay.
Make it 100.
Okay. All right. On the grid, when we go to view the grid, do we want to see the capacities by the square footage or by the number of crews?
So you can set, so like Mark Lavin has 5 crews, let's say. And then when they schedule, they can look at it and go, well, Mark's already got 2 of his crews used up this day, so he should have 3 more of it. I don't know.
So what this is, you're going to have a grid, and the grid's going to have like basically a month on it as far as the layout of the grid. Each day is going to have a number posted in that grid, and that number can either be the square foot quantity available on a given day or the number of crews available on a given day.
Square foot.
Okay, so we're going to leave that on quantity. And then these other ones here are basically the percentage of that quantity that you're going to see on the grid. So for each day of the week, it gives you the option to either see the full capacity or to see a buffered capacity on any given day. Most of the time, Monday through Friday, we leave those at 100%. Sometimes on Saturday, we scale it back to like 50% or 80%, something like that. So
yeah, I'll scale back Saturday to 80%.
Okay. All right. How about Sunday?
Yeah, but you can override it. Do the same thing.
All right. So we're going to work our way down through each of these categories here. All right. So this next one here, this is where I was talking about earlier, where you can set those overrides and those messages that pop up. And so we can have, usually we have our schedulers have the ability, as these warning messages pop up, they can either be a warning message or a restrictive message. A warning message, you just read it, and if you want to go forward, you click OK and you keep on going. A restrict message, you read it and it won't let you go forward unless you go back and get below the threshold, right? So those restrict messages can actually display as warnings instead of restricts for specified users. So we usually set this to assigned. And so for our schedulers, we generally want to turn this on for our schedulers unless you give them the override ability.
So can we take a second? Should we have them log in so their names pop up so we can go ahead and assign them? Sherry and Amber?
Yes, I would. That's what I would suggest.
So can we pause and let them go log on so their
Sure.
names will show?
Sure.
I shall tell you what, if you guys want to stay in here, I can go in there and log them in real quick.
Okay.
It'll make things pop up.
So you can stop being called a dude.
Like, how are we gonna get past that?
Yeah, Sherry the dude.
Gender reassignment.
Can you have a nickname? I'm gonna log in as Rita.
We can't read it.
While you're doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and flip a couple of these over to assigned.
Hmm? Yeah, just while he logged in. Everything okay? I think you're gonna have to get Maureen a license to carry. Oh, that's right, get 70.
Maybe.
Dirty area.
I'm gonna go to talk to Kelly about upgrading my armory.
But he's got it.
Going to do a fancy chrome stainless, whatever. 357. I have you around.
That would scare him to death.
Like 44, man. Big brain.
It is. Get a shotgun, all off the stock. Swing it, put a sling on it. She can.
I don't know it.
I was getting one of those boss birds.
Oh yeah, with the 100-round clip. Sherry's back right now.
Claymore's a good dog, I guess.
I read a story about a guy in Vietnam that he ran supplies north, right? And he was always getting ambushed, right? So he strapped claymores all around his truck. He set them off, stopped the ambush, but the truck didn't go any further.
But they're quick side take now.
Yeah, only here.
Three.
Did we get him in?
There's a challenge right now. They're working on it.
Okay. Do we know what their usernames are going to be?
Well, I think it should be Sherry.
Right there.
That's Cheryl. That was there. Sherry or Rita, and there's Sherry right
Sherry, second one from the top.
there. Yeah. And then Amber, but she's not logged in yet.
58142 Amber and 58142.Rita.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Log you in. I forgot about you.
Let's go ahead. Let's just add them manually. AMBER for Amber.
Yes.
And RITA for Rita.
You want Rita or Sherry?
Sherry's already in.
Sherry's already in there, but
Yep.
you could add Dawn.
Okay, what about Rita?
Back at, Rita is Sherry, so
Oh, okay.
so put that was Dawn, D-O-N.
How are you?
All right.
And then Frank, is Frank in there?
Frank is
Yeah,
in
Frank
there.
needs to be in. Yeah.
He's there.
Did you say Rob?
Rob doesn't need it.
What do we?
That's users. Well, for users for that, for the override. So Dawn is going to do warranty, and then they'll schedule the jobs.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else?
I mean, are we adding people that will be sending the alerts?
We're adding RFMS users, so we have to set
Yeah.
for anybody who's going to be an RFMS user.
Okay, yes, I can give you a couple more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't understand there. Tony?
TONY.
Yeah. Heather?
Rob.
Rob.
Yeah. Sam,
Okay.
Joseph, Stephen's not in there, please.
Okay.
Stephen,
With a V or a PH?
PH. No.
What about our warehouse?
Okay.
I don't know.
Patrick said. Everyone has to have a name, right? Can't be like warehouse. Like,
Yeah, it depends how you've got them set up on your network and how they're going to log in. When they launch that RFMS icon, on their desktop, it really pertains as to how they're going to log into that.
okay. Put Joe.
Joe?
That should be.
We think that's it.
Okay. All right, so let's go back and revisit a couple of things here. All right, let's go to button. All right, of those new folks, what do we want the button to do in order entry? Open Schedule Pro or create alert?
Create alert.
So it's going to be Amber. Dawn.
No, Amber's up.
Sorry, hold on. We got both. So Amber and Sherry will be managing Schedule Pro.
Okay.
And so will Don.
So they're good. He's good.
That's the only 3 people that'll be scheduling.
Okay. Amber, Sherry, and Dawn. I'm just going to write that down. Because we'll need those names for other parts of the process here.
And
Right.
then people who can be sending alerts would be Heather,
Joseph, Keith, Jeremy, Kelly, Letitia, Lauren, go ahead and put her, Paula, Richie, is that all? Shannon,
Stephen and Tony.
Okay, what about Rob and Sam?
No, Rob is a quality assurance guy and Sam's a warehouse guy.
Okay.
Is that Shannon your wife or is it Shannon's phone?
We have 2 Shannons. Could you see which Shannon that is?
I cannot. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh.
All I have to go on is that name. I don't have any other information.
Can you add one more Shannon?
Yeah.
And can we define him somehow? So can we put his whole name there?
So yeah, however you're going to have him log in is him or her is going to be how it'll show up here.
That has to be, because I use Shannon for his login. That's gotta be.
So it'll probably have to have like a last initial or something.
So you think that's him?
Just use the Shannon as
Okay, so then add Shannon and then use the last initial as L.
Okay.
I'll make sure, whichever, I'll make sure.
Okay.
And then what do we want the button to do for Shannon L?
Actually, no, she doesn't need to have an alert.
Okay. So let's go back to our Schedule Pro options now. Okay, we had done the first one. Let's go now to here. Okay. So we're going to turn all these to no except for our schedulers. You said my schedulers were Amber and Sherry and Don.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Open Schedule Pro and read only. So what this means is, like if any user goes into Schedule Pro and they open the Schedule Pro icon from the RFMS Navigator, this controls whether they have editing rights or not. Okay, so we want our schedulers to be set to never, so that they're always in edit mode. But if we, if the salespeople are never going to be changing the schedule, we need to set them to always.
Yeah, so everybody else needs to be always.
Okay. And I'm going to say with the exception of Greg, because we need him for training purposes.
Okay.
Okay. This here default, some of these, as you can see, they're just like default settings. And when they say user, that means they're really up to the personal preference of each person. But this one here, I'm going to go ahead and set this for our schedulers to have their name in there. They do have to be set up in the human resource module. So what's Amber's last name?
Knable. Knable.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I don't see.
That's all installers there.
Yeah. So what it is over in human resource, the little box has to be checked, that says scheduler, so that we can see them in this list. What that does, it just pre-populates the screen whenever they're scheduling, and it pre-populates their name. If we don't have that in, they just have to type in their name in that screen.
So you want to go to human resources?
That's not mission critical at this time.
Okay.
We're going to turn this on. It's already all yes, good. Drag and drop. We're going to turn this on for our schedulers and for Greg. This allows them to move things about the schedule just by using the mouse and clicking and dragging and dropping. This makes scheduling easy.
You need to have Frank.
Okay. All right. And we want this set to no, since all the stores operate out of the same depot. All right. Allow the users to edit the order entry notes. This would be the order internal notes and the order custom notes. We want this only for our schedulers.
Well, it would be Sherry, Don, and Frank. Yep.
Okay.
And Greg.
Okay.
Amber.
Yep, got her.
Get her. Oh, 8.
Okay. That to be no. Now on this one here, when you pull a job into schedule, you have the option of having the system tag all the lines by default or tag no lines. And so, it really just depends. Like when you build a job, do you generally want all the lines scheduled on that job, or do you more often pick and choose individual lines to schedule?
All.
Okay. Okay, we want this to yes, we want this to yes, and we want all these to yes. This allows Schedule Pro to communicate back to order entry and update the dates in order entry with everything that happens. And we'll leave that one in no. All right. This one here needs to be a restrict. Okay, this is all just fine for now. Just to set to yes to the primary. Set this to scheduled. All right, so this is when we schedule, we can have it default to skip Saturday and Sunday or default not to skip Saturday and Sunday.
So how would, if we had a job, excuse me, that was on a Saturday, how would they override it and go to that Saturday?
It will let them. This controls the behavior of a little radio button or a little checkbox actually that says skip Saturday or Sunday. And so if we turn it on, then it will default to check the box. If you want to schedule for Saturday, you just simply uncheck the box. If we don't, then the box won't be checked, and you'll check it every time you want to skip a Saturday.
So will Saturday? We need it to display Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
So yeah.
We'll just make sure they're set to no. Those are set to, make sure these are set to no. Okay. All right, so here now are all our warning messages. So if the crew, so when we're scheduling, if we try to schedule, for example, a carpet guy for a tile job, this gives us the option to make a warning pop-up or a restrict pop-up or no message at all.
What would you like it to stop you or to warn you?
Well, I mean, sometimes Al will do, I mean, I guess if you put in more than one job, it'll be vinyl, so.
Let's just do the warning.
Okay. Same question for crew does not work on scheduled day. So if we have a crew marked off or a crew marked, that he doesn't work on Saturday, but we need to schedule him. So same options.
Warning.
Okay. Crew overbooked for the day, same options.
Warning, yep.
Crew required, same options. So you can schedule without a crew assigned and go back and assign it later.
Warning.
Okay. Time conflict.
Warning.
Okay. Maximum jobs per day per crew exceeded.
Warning.
Installation depot overbooked for the day.
Warning.
Okay. This one here, we'll leave it at no message. We just have the one depot right now. Reason for editing, whenever someone double clicks on a job in Schedule Pro, you can force them to put in a reason that they went there. And again, this can be no message or a warning or a restrict.
Say that again.
So if I double click on the job in Schedule Pro to go into the edit mode, you can, there's a field that says, why were you here? What's the reason you edited? And
so they're editing the actual ticket itself?
They're editing the scheduled job.
No message.
Okay. This next one is a check for lines in none or GenPO status.
Oh, so if you're trying to schedule something that hasn't been ordered.
Right.
Let's do a warning.
Okay. right. Sales representative required. If the order comes through from order entry, it'll have a sales rep on it. There is a feature in Schedule Pro where you can schedule what's called a temp line, temporary, and you don't have to have an order in the system to do that. This would force you or remind you to enter a sales rep's name on that situation.
Warning.
Okay.
He can also say it's too many warnings.
And then scheduled job in the past, we'll leave that as a warning. All right. We want everybody to see the crew availability dots. We're going to turn that on. We want everybody to see the material status indicators, so we're going to put those on. And we want to turn this on. And okay, on the grid to display, whenever we get into Schedule Pro, there are two options for the grid, basically. You have a detailed grid that gives you 5 lines of job-related information per job in a box, or you can set it to simple that gives 1 line of information per job. I usually always have it set to detailed for my schedulers, and so really the choice is to have detailed or simple for the sales staff.
Sales staff needs to have simple.
Okay. So that is going to be everybody except the schedulers. All right, and then in Schedule Pro, you have we've already looked at the work order in order entry. In Schedule Pro, there's an optional document called a work ticket, and I'll show you that whenever we schedule a job. But just so you know, on that, you do have the option to come in here and customize the footer on that document and really put whatever kind of text you'd like to in the footer of that. So
Okay.
we can visit that whenever we where we talk about work tickets. Okay. All right. Okay. So those system options, like I say, we set them up in the live system. What I'd like you to do is finish setting up your job types and your crews. Okay.
Writing it down.
And then go in and do a copy to practice so that we have that information over on our practice environment so that we can come back in there now next time and schedule some jobs and walk jobs through that process so you can see how all that works and start getting used to that, okay?
Okay.
So any questions about how you need to go back in and set up those crews and job types? You'll want to set up.
I don't think so.
You want to do the job types first, because like if you go to crews, it only shows the job types that we've set up. So in order to get more here on this, you have to set up the job types first.
Understood.
Okay.
My understanding is sales support.
I'll be able to
They
see.
just want me to go to editor.
Correct.
So that will say.
All right. So any questions before we wrap up for today?
No, I think we're good. Anybody?
Okay. And thank you for your patience in working through that Schedule Pro setup. It always takes a little time to go in and ask the right questions and get the right answers. But I'm glad that you had me add those users. That way you don't have to go back, hopefully, and mess with adding people who weren't there on the list.
And first, as soon as you get the recap video of this session, if you don't mind, send that to me, and then last Friday's also.
Sure, yeah, last Friday's, I dropped that in the folder this morning, and this one here will be ready probably by the end of the day.
Awesome, thank you.
I think that's it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day. And talk to you on Wednesday, right?
Wednesday, I think so. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good.
See ya.
Talk to you
in a
then.
little bit.